Now listen, this is the best breakdown that you're ever going to get about Daniel chapter 11. This is the most underrated chapter in the Bible, by far. This specific area, chapter 11, verse 20 to 45, is a modern era fulfillment. I'm going to show you right here. A ruler steps down quietly. There's no war, no dramatic ending. Just a silent transition that looks administrative on the surface, and almost immediately, another figure begins appearing. Meetings and negotiations, the cameras and the summits, the White House visits. No dynasty or crown, yet authority begins consolidating around this guy with a surprising speed. Daniel chapter 11 tells us this is exactly how the final sequence begins. Now, before we go verse by verse, two things have to be understood clearly, or the entire chapter confuses everybody. First is geography. In Daniel chapter 11, the king of the north and the king of the south aren't symbolic titles that float across the globe. They are geographic locked positions relative to Israel. South of Israel is Egypt, north of Israel is Syria. Historically, Egypt was ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty, and Syria was ruled by the Seleucid dynasty. The north-south struggle over the same land corridor is the backbone of the entire chapter, and the geography never changes. Second is when it happens. Daniel repeatedly uses phrases like the appointed time, the time of the end. Antiochus Epiphanes died long before Jesus was born. Yet Jesus later told his disciples, when you see this, the abomination of desolation, standing in the holy place, Jesus treated Daniel as future. That means Antiochus fulfills the historical pattern, but there is a modern mirror fulfillment as well. Now let's walk through it carefully. Daniel chapter 11 verse 20. Then shall arise in his place one who shall send an exactor of tribute for the glory of the kingdom, but within a few days he'll be broken, neither in anger nor in battle. Historically, this refers to Seleucus IV. After Rome imposed heavy tribute on the Seleucid kingdom, his reign focused on taxation rather than conquest. He even attempted to extract funds tied to the Jerusalem temple treasury. His removal came quietly, through intrigue, not through war, exactly as Daniel describes. In the modern era, this fits Assad to a T, y'all. It sets the tone for how the end-time sequence begins. Assad exits the same way verse 20 says, without chaos, without tanks in the streets. He leaves, but the calmness of the transition is what allows the next figure to rise unnoticed. Daniel 11:21. In his place shall arise a contemptible person to whom royal majesty hasn't been given. He'll come in without warning and grab the kingdom by flatteries. Back in the day, this describes Antiochus Epiphanes. He wasn't given the kingdom through a clean or honored tradition or succession. He maneuvered into power through persuasion and influence and political manipulation. We see that every day, y'all. Daniel emphasizes that his rise looked smooth, not violent. In the modern pattern, we know who this fits. The final ruler doesn't arrive as an obvious tyrant. He gains influence through diplomacy, like being called a guy that needs a chance, a tough guy.
He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him. The new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful, because that's part of the Middle East.
Authority gathers before the world realizes what it's watching. 11:22. Armies will be swept away before him and broken, even the prince of the covenant. Historically, the prince of the covenant's best understood as Onias III, the Jewish high priest. Corruption overtook the priesthood, because Jason bought the office, then Menelaus outbid him. Onias was forced out and later murdered at Daphne near Antioch. Covenant leadership was not merely replaced, it was violently broken. In the modern fulfillment, this verse points to covenant realignment before open war. This is where the Abraham Accords go, y'all. The Abraham Accords are normalization agreements between Israel and Arab nations, framed as peace and security and regional cooperation. Several nations have signed openly. Saudi Arabia became the keystone behind these, along with America in 2020 when they were formed. But the Saudi Crown Prince holds unique covenant weight in this: political, economic, and religious. Daniel's language allows for breaking not only by assassination, but by neutralization, control, and forced alignment. Covenant leadership's no longer independent. It's brought under the system. This sets the stage for everything that follows. Now, just ask the question of what happens when Trump leaves office. 1123. And from the time that an alliance is made with him, he'll act deceitfully and become strong with a small number of people. So you people that are saying the Antichrist has to be loved, no, he doesn't. Because historically, Antiochus strengthened himself through alliances while acting deceptively. His power base began small but strategic, centered on insiders rather than mass support. And a lot of al-Shirah's people are here in America. In the modern fulfillment, this alliance isn't incidental either. It's foundational. This is where a coalition forms, not yet globally, but unified in purpose. This is the early shape of what Revelation later calls the 10 Kings, a compact group of rulers aligned through agreement rather than conquest. Daniel 11:24. Without warning, he'll come into the richest parts of the province, and he'll do what his fathers never did, scattering among them plunder and goods. Historically, Antiochus used wealth to buy loyalty. He entered regions peacefully, then distributed resources to secure allegiance. In the modern pattern, this is economic leverage. It becomes the primary weapon. Trade, aid, reconstruction funds, and financial incentives bind leaders and regions into dependence on this man. Control is established before resistance even forms. Daniel 11:25. And he'll stir up his power in his heart against the king of the south with a great army. Historically, this describes the Syrian king moving militarily against Egypt. Antiochus launched major campaigns southward. In the modern fulfillment, expect the same thing. Syria and Egypt are probably going to get into it here pretty soon over a diplomatic push or military action, but this long-running north-south feud is not over. Daniel 11:26. Even those who eat his food shall break him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. Historically, Egypt's collapse came through betrayal from within. Trusted insiders undermined the resistance, causing military failure. In the modern pattern, internal compromise weakens nations faster than open war. The collapse begins at the table before it's even reached at the battlefield. Egypt loses this battle because it's betrayed from within. Daniel 11:27. And as for these two kings, their hearts will be bent on doing nothing but evil. They'll speak lies at the same table, but to no avail, because the end is yet to be at the appointed time. Historically, diplomacy between Syria and Egypt was deceptive. Treaties were made with no intention of keeping them. Prophetically, Daniel says plainly that the end is still future, so this verse alone prevents the prophecy from ending with Antiochus. But the modern pattern's the same thing. They're going to meet at the same table, they're going to shake hands, they're going to lie through their teeth, and nothing's going to come of that. Daniel 11:28. And he'll return to his land with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. Historically, Antiochus returned wealthy and turned his hostility toward Jewish worship and law. In the modern pattern, expect to see the same thing, but with political ambition shifting into spiritual opposition. Pressure moves from borders to belief. Daniel 11:29. Now catch this. At the appointed time he shall return and come into the south, but it won't be as the time as it was before. Historically, Antiochus attempted another southern campaign, but with a different outcome. Really different outcome. In the modern fulfillment, a renewed push toward Egypt meets a changed response. God's timing governs the result. Daniel 11:30. For ships of Kittim, for ships of Kittim from the west shall come against him, and he shall be afraid and withdraw. Historically, Roman naval power stopped Antiochus and forced a humiliating retreat. emphasis on humiliating here. In the modern pattern, that's us, y'all. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. That's our Western maritime power restraining his push to expand. This restraint becomes a turning point emotionally and strategically. We just made him mad. Daniel 11:30. Then he'll turn back and be enraged and take action against the Holy Covenant. He'll turn back and pay attention to those who forsake the Holy Covenant. Historically, Antiochus redirected his rage toward covenant faithfulness and empowered collaborators. In the modern fulfillment, resentment toward restraint fuels persecution. Covenant breakers are elevated, while faithfulness becomes really costly. It costs everything. Daniel 11:31. Forces from him shall appear and profane the temple and fortress, and take away the regular burnt offering, and they set up the abomination that makes desolate. Historically, Antiochus desecrated the second temple. The future fulfillment, do I even have to describe it? It's going to be the same thing. And this is where he reveals to the world that he is God. Daniel 11:32. He'll seduce those with flattery, those who violate the covenant, but the people who know their God shall stand firm and take action. Historically, compromise was rewarded, while faithfulness required courage. In the modern pattern today, flattery draws many into alignment, but a faithful remnant stands firm, and they will do exploits, which means the Christian community is about ready to rock and roll. Daniel 11:33. And the wise among the people shall make many understand, though for some days they'll stumble by sword and flame by captivity and plunder. Historically, the faithful teachers instructed others at a great, great cost. In the modern pattern, it's the same thing. I'm perfectly ready and willing to teach y'all what you're not being taught in church. You need to know this. The modern pattern is the same. The truth spreads under pressure. Daniel 11:34. When they stumble, they'll receive a little help, but many shall join themselves to them with flattery. Historically, help came, but the motives were a bit mixed. The same pattern repeats in the end times. Daniel 11:35. And some of the wise shall stumble, so that they may be refined and purified and made white until the time of the end, for it still awaits the appointed time. Historical fulfillment of this is when Antiochus, during his period, many of the faithful, those who truly understood the covenant, suffered loss, persecution, and even death. Their stumbling wasn't meaningless. It exposed who was genuine and who was merely aligned for convenience. Through pressure, betrayal, and suffering, the faithful were refined, while compromise was revealed. This process didn't end the conflict, it clarified it. Modern end times fulfillment of this is where Daniel makes clear that refining does not stop in history. It continues until the time of the end. In the final phase, some of the wise will stumble again, not because God abandoned us, but because pressure will reveal our allegiance to Him. The purpose is purification, not destruction, separating surface level belief from real faith. This verse is the bridge. It closes the refining process straight into the end-time ruler who appears next. But the end-time ruler mirrors each of these as well. That's my point here. 11:36. The king shall do as he wills, and exalt himself, and magnify himself above every god, and speak astonishing things against the God of gods. Will prosper till the indignation is accomplished, for what's decreed shall be done. He answers to no higher authority, and openly blasphemes the true God. His success isn't permanent. It's allowed for a defined season God has already decreed. Power here is real, but temporary. Daniel 11:37. He'll pay no attention to the gods of his fathers, or to the one beloved by women. He won't pay any attention to other gods, for he shall magnify himself above them all. This ruler rejects inherited religion, moral tradition, and natural restraint. The emphasis is total self-exaltation. Nothing stands above him. Faith and conscience and human loyalty are all dismissed. He becomes the center of authority, like it or not. Daniel 11:38. And he'll honor the God of fortresses instead of these. A God whom his fathers didn't know, he shall honor with gold and silver and precious stones. Though he rejects all traditional gods, he does worship power. military strength, enforcement, security, it all becomes sacred to him. Wealth is poured into force and military as the ultimate grantor of order. Power itself becomes the object of devotion. Daniel 11:39. He shall deal with the strongest fortresses with the help of a foreign god. Those who acknowledge him, he shall load with honor. He'll make them rulers over many nations and shall divide the land for a price. This verse explains how his empire is governed. Authority is distributed, not inherited, given to those who acknowledge him. This is likely the moment the 10 kings emerge, rulers elevated by allegiance. They're granted power for a limited time and purpose. And Revelation later tells us these kings receive authority for 1 hour, and it's no coincidence that 1 hour is also how long it takes for Mystery Babylon to fall. Power is handed out briefly, violently, and ends just as quickly. Daniel 11:40. And at the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, but the king of the north shall rush upon him like a whirlwind, and he'll come into countries and shall overflow and pass through. He's breaking through borders like they're chalk, because there is no America anymore. We're out of it. There's no America. Nobody has help. He's busting through everybody's borders. And Daniel explicitly anchors this moment to the time of the end. A southern push triggers an overwhelming northern response to the rest of the world. The imagery is rapid, multi-front conquest, land and sea. This is pure escalation, not diplomacy. Daniel 11:41. He shall come into the glorious land, and tens of thousands shall fall, but these shall be delivered out of his hand: Edom, Moab, and the main part of the Ammonites. Israel becomes central in the final phase, and destruction follows. Yet Daniel is precise here. Edom, Moab, and Ammon are sacred. This is intentional, not accidental, because these are these very same regions that appear in Isaiah 63 and Revelation 14 as the site of the winepress of the wrath of God, where Messiah treads judgment personally. What's spared here is saved for later. 11:42. He shall stretch out his hand and against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. This long north-south struggle reaches its final conclusion. Egypt, the king of the south's domain, is fully overtaken. This completes the trajectory Daniel has been building through the chapter. Resistance from the south collapses. Daniel 11:43. He'll become ruler of the treasures of gold and silver, and all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Cushites shall follow in his train. Military dominance expands into economic control. Wealth, trade, and resources all fall under his authority. Surrounding regions either submit or they get dealt with, but the consolidation becomes powerful between political, military, and economic ties. Daniel 11:44. But news from the east and the north shall alarm him, and he shall go out with great fury to destroy and devote many to destruction. Even at peak dominance, instability still remains. Reports from other regions provoke fear and rage, and his response is escalation, not restraint. Violence becomes the method of control. But think about this. News from the north would be Russia. East would be China. I'm thinking a revolt, because America's not here. We're already done. We're taken out. But Daniel 11:45, and he shall pitch his palatial tents between the sea and the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end with none to help him. The ruler positions himself near the ultimate spiritual center, acting as though it's sacred ground and it belongs to him. This is the height of arrogance and defiance, and Daniel ends it decisively. He comes to his end with no allies, nobody to intervene, and God has the final word, and he's crushed. Now listen, if you're still here, please don't just scroll past this like it was information. Use this as, if you see these things happening soon, remember what I said so you can get ready for these things. This is scripture unfolding, and it's meant to be wrestled with. It's meant to be put out like this. I want to hear what you see in this chapter. Not talking points, real observations. Drop them in the comments and challenge it. Add to it. Let's sharpen one another, because this isn't about winning arguments. It's about understanding what God already told us would happen. We need to know when it's going to happen. If you haven't yet, follow and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this with someone who still thinks prophecy is vague or symbolic. And above all, stay watchful, because Jesus told us to. God bless you all and your families, and God bless these United States. Shalom, shalom, brothers and sisters. Maranatha.
When that trumpet blows at midnight, ain't no bargains, ain't no bribes for the other side.